Hello, everyone. Hello and welcome to the second episode of Why Arweave. It's a special MA series which is dedicated to the Arweave ecosystem and the growth of Arweave ecosystem. My name is Val. I'm Global Marketing Head at 4everland, and together today with Eva, we will co-host today's event. So, Eva, nice to meet you. Could you please make a brief introduction?
Sure thing. Hi, nice to meet you guys again. Yeah, thank you for having me here. So, a quick introduction here. This is Eva from Permadao. I'm a mediocre Permadao builder. And in case you haven't been aware of what a Permadao is, so basically, Permadao is a value delivery base for all the R weavers and also for anyone who would like to know who is interested in Arweave and would like to know more about Arweave or build on top of Arweave, we provide research support and also operational activities, PR marketing and incubation and free credit, storage credit as well. So yeah, if you are interested in learning more about Arweave or building on top of Arweave, you are more than welcome to hit me up, and yeah, you can be just on board with seemingly within 2 minutes. So yeah, basically that's it. And just wanted to thank you for all of us for being here. It's still like very, I know that for someone it's still pretty early in the morning, and yeah, we definitely looking forward to you guys share more like sparkle and insights for our daily updates.
Yeah, thank you, Eva, for a brief introduction, and also want to say special thanks to Permadao and Permaweb News for helping us to organize today's event. So before we start, I would love to, remind our listeners why this series is called Are We? Why Are We? So why Are We is seems to be pretty simple, but at the same time, thought-provoking question. And I'm sure that our guests who are OGs and Arweave could answer it in multiple ways. While 4everland is continues its engagement into Arweave ecosystem, we would love to connect Arweave ecosystem projects and let communities deeply engage with each other, and of course, bring you latest updates and insights about Arweave ecosystem growth and Arweave development. So, with that being to say, let me start with a quick introduction. So, guys, let's start with DMac. So, could you please make a short introduction of yourself? What you are doing? What's your background? And all this stuff. And yeah.
Sure. Yeah, happy to. Yeah, I'm DMac. By trade, I suppose I'm a programmer. I started off very early in my career working for big companies like Microsoft and Boeing. Realized very quickly that I did not like working in large organizations. It just wasn't a good fit for me personality-wise. And I had spent most of my teenage years like as a hobbyist game developer, and so that was always a passion of mine. So after a few years of working in enterprise and the agency space, I switched over to working for smaller teams on game development. And so I worked on a number of emerging platforms, Facebook games early on, like in the what do you call it, Farmville era. I don't know if you guys remember Zynga and Facebook games and stuff like that. I worked on a hit game called Social City, a number of different games on a number of different platforms. Made an FPS in the browser using the Unity plugin. Instant games as they were emerging on messaging platforms. I did some of the initial launch titles on WeChat and Line Messenger as well for games playing in the browser. But eventually, I realized that the games industry was going a direction that I didn't like. What was happening was, as a game developer, your goal is to create experiences that delight and entertain people. But increasingly, with like the free to play business model and different dynamics in the industry, you'd spend 50% of your time trying to make an engaging game, and then 50% of your time trying to trick the player out of money. I just, after a while, I just kind of got sick of it. It just felt like you were trying to create traps that were trying to make people spend more money than they wanted to. And so I started looking around for other things to engage in. And around that time, that's when I stumbled into crypto and Bitcoin and blockchain in specific. And I got very excited about this idea of decentralization and distributed systems. And I wanted to know more. I wanted to know how they were built. As a game developer, I'd worked on a number of like multiplayer games. And so I was familiar with networking. And so I just found the whole space from the technology and the philosophy standpoint exciting. And ironically, I looked around for different projects to get involved in. And one of the first white papers I read was IPFS. And I got very excited about it. It had like all of the values that were aligned with my values. But when I looked at the technology, I didn't quite see how it would work for what I wanted. And it was I explored a few other projects, but eventually I heard Sam on a podcast with Kevin Rose talking about Arweave. And it was like this layer one blockchain that I'd never heard of. And as he was talking, I got really excited about the idea of completely decentralized web applications, where the whole web application, not just the smart contract, but everything, the front end, the user interface, everything could be deployed in this censorship resistant, permanent way. And I was like, yeah, this is where I'm going to invest my time. And that's how I came to Arweave.
That's really impressive. I really love what you said about like the transition from game industry into crypto. That's, I think, really interesting, and lots of people could take something useful for themselves from your story. So let's continue with the next speaker, who is Pierre. Pierre, you're welcome.
Hi there, guys. Thanks for inviting me here. First of all, I want to stress that I don't consider myself an OG at all. I joined the ecosystem only in 2021 or something. Dameon, on the other hand, which I see that he just joined, he's a true OG, being here before Arweave's mainnet release. And also DMac was probably the source to go for network-related questions. Anyway, those being said, I'm a writer on PermaWeb News, the former Arweave News. As you may know, we are going through a major update, trying to not only be the main source of Arweave-related news, but also to create a media outlet that leverages Arweave technology in order to achieve censorship resistance and other perks that come from data permanence. We have a very strong partnership with Permadao, PermaFacts, and with a lot of perma-related things, I suppose. Yeah, that's all for my part, I would say.
Yeah, thank you. And you mentioned that Dameon came to us. Dameon, hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Cool, awesome. We were waiting for you. So, can you please continue with the introduction? Could you please let us know about your background?
Sure. I'm just a guy, and that's the way I like to refer to myself. I like to just, I'm kind of in the middle. I'm a developer by nature. I've worked in kitchens. I've just been kind of an end user, right? Like I play games. I use technology. I have a new phone. I have a new computer. I just like being in the space of technology and where it's going. I found blockchain early on, 2010, 2011, playing around with technology and being on the dark web, finding Bitcoin, and just being aware of it. Being on the dark web isn't necessarily forthcoming of character, so I shut down my computer and kind of left it all alone for years. And then around 2017, I found Sam. They were doing a pre-ICO. It was completely different than finance, and I, like DMac, got excited. So being on the Genesis block, we were all allowed to write something, and I wrote in on history, because that's kind of what this is, right? We're writing the history of what can be known 100 years from now. Who knows? And so I found it, I pre-ICO'd in, just knowing that data and data wars and community data and global community data and having this pool that we can all kind of, you know, commit to, participate in, and nobody's going to stop us. Nobody's going to stop you. Nobody's going to stop me. And so I've kind of just been participating from that standpoint of, you know, decentralization, non-stoppage, and then trying to relate that to, let's say, normies who don't really care. Bringing up the internet in the 90s, people were kind of confused, and they're still kind of confused, and they've just kind of like put it to the side. So I'm just trying to be in the middle. Like I said, I'm a developer by nature. I'm writing for PermaWeb News now, doing some DevRel. I created our Academy as a learning application of both video, code, static websites. Just trying to push the environment and ecosystem forward from a non-techie, anti-tech point of view of what it can actually do for us as humans globally and how we can all kind of come together and move the ecosystem forward.
Yeah, that's right. Taking it forward to normies and letting normies know more about Arweave is the ultimate goal, I think, for us. For everybody who is involved into Arweave ecosystem. So we've got another guest, Jonathan, Director of Ecosystem Operations at RIO. So Jonathan, you're welcome.
Sure, thanks, Val, and thanks for hosting today. My name is Jonathan. I'm the Ecosystem Director at RIO. My background is I'm a mechanical engineer, and I spent 15 years in New York City designing buildings, like high-rise buildings, all types of buildings, and from like small pizza places up to full 80-story buildings. So that was definitely a full-time engaging career. I've been in crypto for a while, and I'm not an OG of Arweave, but our founder, Phil, is actually a really good friend of mine. And, we started to work with them a little bit, doing business development. And then I decided to join full time, caught the perma bug and just got obsessed with like the concept of permanence, everything Arweave had, and just really got excited about a new opportunity in the Web3 space and, meeting new people. Using kind of a different part of my brain. Engineering has a lot of parallels, the skill set carries over. So that's been good, from like product management and just organization and thinking technically. And so at RIO, we have call it our flagship product, Rdrive, which is like a Dropbox-like application for interacting with Arweave. Users can log in and manipulate files, upload files, move them, rename them. We have a web app, we have developer tools, and we also have a mobile app on Android. And then we're also working towards the launch of the RIO network, which is going to be a big piece of the Arweave ecosystem. Currently, everyone's relying on arweave.net in general for interacting with the network. And arweave.net is a gateway that we operate on behalf of the community, and it sees most of the traffic for the community. But it's a single entity. It's a single gateway. It's operated by a single team. It's expensive to operate. And just in terms of the long-term vision of Arweave and decentralized storage and permanence and resilience and all that, it's a single source of failure. So the goal of the RIO network is to create an incentivization layer on top of Arweave to bring more gateway operators on board, whether it's for running a gateway for their own purposes or for their own applications or for larger scale like arweave.net. And part of that is what we have is the Arweave name system, and that's for assigning friendly names to transaction IDs, and which is really neat. I don't know if people have played around with it, but you can host, it's a friendly domain essentially. So you can host a website and just have like, if you go to Johnny Sparkles, I think it's right now, johnnysparkles.arweave.dev, it's just my profile picture, but we use a concept called undernames to assign like subdomains to that. And under that, for me, I have a couple articles we published about censorship or, I don't know, some AI things we got into. And it's just a really cool concept for making the Arweave platform friendly and intuitive to use, and just like more accessible to a wider audience. And yeah, we're excited to get that out. We're in development now. We're in closed testing. We're going to start dropping some public announcements soon. We are near the end of the white paper development, so we're really excited to get that out to the community and get feedback on that. And yeah. So happy to answer questions. Thanks again for having us.
Yeah, thank you for coming to us today. And guys, listening to you stories and how you came to Arweave, how you came to crypto, I'm really excited about. Guys from every spheres, from engineering, from game industry, from everywhere, they are coming to crypto, they are coming to blockchain. That's really impressive. And therefore, I'm really interested to know our next guest, Daniel. What's your background? Where are you coming from?
Okay, thank you so much. It's amazing to be on the space today. I'm from Africa, Nigeria, to be specific, and I'm pioneering the Arweave in Africa community. So basically, I'm a developer and I write a lot. Also, I write technical articles also, to help people understand what the particular product is all about. And I got into Arweave. I got to hear about Arweave about I think last year, very early last year. So I was basically browsing about alternatives to IPFS and all of that, and then I stumbled upon Arweave, and I was fascinated by the unique features I found, like permanence, like you being able to pay once, you being able to choose who sees your data, and that in terms of you being able to choose who sees your data, and the supportive community basically around Arweave. So I noticed the knowledge gap kind of within my region, which is Africa. A lot of people have not heard of Arweave, and whenever I talk about it, they ask what is Arweave, if it's permanent, how do I access my data, and all of that. So I thought to create a community, or to start a community where all of this information could people could learn from one another, basically on spaces like this, to just basically talk around Arweave to kind of close that knowledge gap, basically. So that's basically all about me. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel. Yeah, for sure. We at Arweave, everyone is interested in promoting Arweave, and especially among developing countries, especially in Africa, because I think I have a colleague coming from Africa. He's also building with Arweave and also experiencing this protocol, and he actually has kind of the same background coming from IPFS, IPFS related product and stuff. So yeah, probably Arweave would become his the final choice, because the permanence of data is the killer feature that we have here, and would love to promote it among normies and everyone who is interested in storing data. So I think we are ready to continue with the second question. Eva, you are welcome to.
So just thank you for guys for just you explaining your background and how you're getting to know about Arweave. So maybe this question first maybe come to for Daniel. Actually, I'm quite interested about how the Arweave community in Africa, and also maybe you would like to share more about like what is it about Arweave that you are most obsessed with, or when it comes to like Africa community, like community people, what's Arweave they are attracted most?
Yeah, probably this is the question to Daniel. So could you please elaborate on that?
Yeah, hello. Since I didn't get the question.
Yeah, my question was simply like, for you, like personally, what is Arweave that you are most obsessed with? Like, what is the most attractive about Arweave? And also when it comes to the Africa community, like, basically community members, why they are interested about Arweave? What's the like sexy narrative to the community? Yeah.
I suspect Daniel's not hearing Eva, even though I can hear her.
Yeah, I also can hear Eva, but Daniel, just did you have a chance to hear Eva's question?
No, I didn't get the question at all.
Oh, I see. That's strange. So let me just ask you. Eva was asking you just what's the feature of Arweave? What's the special about Arweave that you are obsessed with and your community is obsessed with? So what's the killer feature that you think the most important for the community?
Okay, basically, the most important feature that I mean that sells is basically data permanence. It's also one of the things that fascinates me about how that you've been able to have many replica of your data and to minimize the probability of losing that data to your physical hard drives or whatever, or whenever it fails. So you have this sort of data permanence on Airwave that provides you that very cool feature also. And then another thing I noticed was you are able to create your own subgraphs on Airwave, so on Airwave also. That's using the very cool resource bank created by the Arweave team or the Arweave team. That's the Permaweb cookbook that contains a lot of resources to get started with things like subgraphs and querying with GraphQL and all of that stuff.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel. Yeah, just the same question to Jonathan. Jonathan, what do you think is the most obsessing in Arweave? So it was the most important feature of that?
Yeah, well, obviously the permanence, but I think just like what drew me in, especially is aside from like the technicals, just the ecosystem and the community are like awesome compared with other crypto ecosystems. Everyone is obsessed with building, and that's it. Like, it doesn't matter what you're doing. You can drop in a channel, drop an idea, and people will like swarm you with suggestions or refer you to the right location. We've been having, the ecosystem been kicking up. It's like in real life events. We hosted Arweave in Denver back in earlier this month, and it was just so nice seeing everybody. Like, it was just such a great vibe. Like, we hosted panels, and I don't know if anyone's been to other panel discussions, but like, it's very rare for everyone to be paying attention. Everyone in the room was paying attention to the panel and like interested and engaged. Really said a lot to me. So, aside from the whole like permanence, I mentioned the catching the permabug angle, and everybody needing data storage and censorship resistance and longevity and all that. It's really the community I'm obsessed with. I really enjoy working with everybody.
Yep, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I feel the same. Like for me, I will feel like people, community, and belongings is everything. And like for like Arweave's community, I would definitely is very unique and special, and of course organic. So yeah, it's just very different from any other mediocre community. Yeah, so I totally hear what you're saying. So DMac, you have anything to share with us?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things about Arweave. The permanence isn't is obviously one of its major features. But why is permanence valuable? Like, why is that so important? And I think the thing that excites me about it is Arweave takes something out of the political domain and into the technical. So what is that? So in the West, I guess specifically in America, sometimes we have the concept of free speech, and the government in America, for the most part, says like you can criticize the government, and the government can't arrest you for doing that. And that's a very important part of freedom and democracy in the West. But to be honest, the government could remove those rights at any time. It's in the Constitution, so it's not going to get removed easily. But the point I'm trying to make is that those rights and those privileges depend on the state. And depending on the country of the world that you're in, you may have greater or lesser access to free speech. You might be in a country with an authoritarian regime that does not want any criticism. And in fact, if you try to criticize the politicians, you might there might be some sort of criminal or illegal charges. But what Arweave does is it takes this concept of speech, allowing you to share your thoughts with the world, and it takes it out of the domain of the political and it puts it into technology. So now we have a technology that unlocks speech for the world, and it does so at a price point that most of the world can participate. And so with that permanence comes this censorship resistant. Now if you're in a country and you observe some kind of atrocity being committed by the state, you could potentially record that and put it on Arweave, and there's no way to delete it. And there's no way for the state to censor it or to stop it. And I think that is such a critical element in the spread of freedom around the world, and the idea that there's a technology or a protocol that can put this kind of speech in the hands of the whole world is fundamentally exciting. And I think it's something that we haven't had before. Like there's been examples of like religious texts that have been put onto wood carvings, and they've been stored for like 800 years. And of course, there's like a whole monastery dedicated to like preserving this copy of this very important data, like Buddhist texts. But that type of archival, that type of storing data over the scope of centuries has required basically the finances of a nation state, or something that can afford to pay people to eat and live their whole lives to take care of this replica of data. But now with Arweave and this protocol, that type of permanence is accessible to almost anyone, and the types of data that can be stored can be important just to the individual. And these are all things that haven't existed before, and who knows the impact on society and the world that it's going to have. So that's what's exciting to me.
Thank you so much for sharing your insight with us, DMac. That was very, very inspiring. And I must say, all the Arweavers that I have been known, they are all very idealism and liberalism. That's very impressive, and that's what I've been deeply moved. Yeah, so how about you, Pierre? Because you are also the journalist. So I assume as a journalist, you might still have some different insight, or you might have deep understanding of how important free speech, free rights is.
Yeah, well, I want to revisit also the data permanence feature, which enforces free speech also, but makes a lot much. I came from a background in archaeology, digging prehistoric sites and stuff like that. And it's funny that DMac mentioned, the wood carvings which were preserved for hundreds of years. Well, if you are going way back in the history, in prehistory, like thousands of years, wood actually decays. And right now we don't have very much wood preserved from that period. Almost all disappeared. So a lot of data that was, stored on wood is forever lost. And this comes to the idea of the medium where one can preserve data. Historically, humans achieved nearly indestructible archives through clay tablets. But they have a problem. They are not easily they are not easy to replicate. So what Arweave does is basically taking a hard drive, imagine it as a wood object, something that has a period in which it can decay. And before that wood object decays, it will create another copy. And then it will create another copy. And if the entire society, as we know today, with the networking capabilities, with electricity and so on, will leave, we will probably, through Arweave, manage to get that data to a safe haven where we can create truly indestructible medium for data storage. And this is one thing I loved when I first read the Arweave yellow paper, is that actually Arweave acknowledges that it's just basically an arc for information to pass through, let's say, hundreds, even millennia, but it has definitely a point where it will stop. The point where it will stop is when basically storage will become free and permanent in a more, let's say, traditional way, like being engraved in rock or something. Some weeks ago, I think we had Arweave Walkathon where we talked about storing data in DNA strands, for example. Probably in the future, we'll reach that kind of medium for storage. But until then, we need something like Arweave. Yeah, I hope that it made sense or whatever.
Thank you so much, Pierre. Yeah, it definitely makes sense. So maybe Jonathan, what's your insights about it?
I'm sorry, Eva, what was it?
Yeah, so like, what about Arweave is you that are most obsessed with? Is it permanent storage or like censorship resistant?
Oh, I already gave my answer. It's the community.
Oh, sorry, I made a naive mistake. I thought, yeah, I think we are still missing Dameon here.
Dameon, looks like he's connecting still, though. There he is.
Okay, so maybe we can just jump to the next question first. And Val, would you like to take that?
Yeah, for sure. But I think Dameon, by the way, are you here? Could you hear us?
Because I think we lost him.
Because it seems that like his status is written like connecting or something. Okay, yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm listening.
Okay, so let's talk about the next question, and it's a little bit more tech one. So we all heard about Arweave 2.6, but still it's a little bit tough for no miss. And as I said, our ultimate aim is, of course, to spread the information about Arweave and make more people know more about forever Arweave and Arweave ecosystem. So would love to hear you guys your thoughts on will this upgrade, I mean Arweave 2.6, bring any kind of disruptive capabilities to the whole ecosystem. So Dameon, I think, he's just connecting. DMac, could you please? I saw your thread on 2.6 upgrade. You were thinking about how to store the data like 10x to the data that is already being stored on Arweave. So what do you think about the update?
Yeah, well, the interesting thing about the update is that it didn't change how the network worked for anything built on top of Arweave. So posting transactions, querying transactions, retrieving transaction data, that all stayed exactly the same. And that's fantastic, because what that meant is that nothing in the permaweb was broken by the fact that this upgrade happened. Now, it was a fairly substantial upgrade in terms of the mining mechanism. So the mining software that the nodes run changed quite a bit. It's operating under a very different model now. And some of the things that are exciting about that is that, for one, it optimizes the number of replicas of Arweave's data per unit of energy consumed. So early on in Arweave's development, the mining mechanism was very different. It was, for each block that was produced, there was sort of two stages. The first stage would be the protocol would say, recall a historical block. And this block would be like the block in its entirety. So like all of the transactions, the headers, the data. And once the miner had a copy of that historical block, then they would do very traditional proof of work mining, just like Bitcoin. And they would burn as much energy as possible in a race to produce the block. And then when they crossed the finish, when the first miner crossed the finish line, they would shove that entire historical block into the new block that they were creating and post it to the network. And this meant that many times miners wouldn't even have to store all of Arweave's data. They would just have to be able to access it over the network. So someone might put all of the Arweave blocks on a shared network drive, and then miners would just grab the historical block, and then they would start doing proof of work mining. Today, with 2.6, that whole mechanism has almost entirely flipped. So today, you have to earn the proof of work hashes that you calculate. And the way that you earn them is by storing copies of the Arweave data. So now every miner has to store their own copies of the historical block data on Arweave. And they have to constantly prove that they're storing chunks of this data. And in 2.6, one of the great things that we get as a result of that is that it really minimizes the amount of proof of work hashing that miners have to do by making it based on how much data they store. And the amount of hashes that the protocol allocates is sufficient or can be sufficiently supported by cheap commodity hard drives. So it really lowers the cost of hardware and power consumption on Arweave. Now, that's all great. It's good to be more efficient. It's good not to waste energy. It's fantastic to have many replicas of Arweave data. But as a result of this mechanism, we now on Arweave have a way to tell how much data the network is storing. You can look at the number of hashes. So if a miner stores a complete copy of Arweave data, it will emit a certain number of hashes per second, which the miner can use to mine. What you can do is you can look at the total hash rate of Arweave and divide it by the number of hashes that a complete replica will produce. And you can get an idea of how many complete replicas of the Arweave data set exist. And this is something that's been difficult to do in the past. You had to sort of infer it from some other attributes, but now there's a much more direct calculation. And so the difficulty for Arweave is still bouncing around as more and more miners join the network in 2.6 and move over from 2.5 to 2.6. But the emerging trend is that it looks like there's 200 plus copies of the Arweave data set. So when you look at a dashboard and you see that there's 124 terabytes of Arweave data, you have to multiply that by 200 and maybe a bit more, because that's how much the miners are actually storing. And what that means is that they have all of this, because they're storing duplicate copies of the Arweave data set. If someone was to upload a very large transaction, like a petabyte transaction, those miners could just reduce some of those redundant copies that they're storing and make room for this new transaction and store 20 copies of it. So it's really reassuring that 2.6 is able to like report on how much storage is being offered to the network by miners, and so we can get an idea of like how big Arweave can scale immediately if it had to.
DMac, thank you for such a brief and at the same time so informative introduction into 2.6 update. I think you made it clear for the majority of listeners what has been updated, and I assume that it made much more clear. Yeah, we've got Dameon, by the way. What are your thoughts on 2.6 update?
All right, so before I get into that, I just wanted to thank 4everland, Val, and Max for inviting me, all the panel for showing up and discussing some things at a high level. Revert back to the second question. I'm super excited about the community like Jonathan. It's a global community. We have people from Africa, people from Asia. All continents are kind of covered. I think that's the most powerful thing about it. We have this permissionless data pool that we can all grab and participate in. And so like moving forward, I just think that that's probably the most powerful, most exciting thing for me. Sorry, I'm out in public. As far as 2.6, it's upgrades. We're going to have more. We're going to find better ways. I think DMac explained it at a high level. There's amounts of replicas that we're going to be able to store our data and have access to at different locations of the world, right? Like as a global community, like you said, it's just US bound sometimes. And so that's kind of where I'm coming from of the global aspect of Africa can post data, we can access it in America, and we can all kind of build the community of sharing data and having like a hive mind of data. And as LLMs are AI coming to fruition, these data wars and where they're actually getting the data from is kind of controlled, right? Like Google controls theirs, Microsoft's controlling OpenAI. What about like just humans controlling where it's going and not it being directed for a profit? That's another thing that Arweave is really good for, keeping finance out of the ecosystem. At one point, it had reached like $90 a coin, and nobody batted an eye. Like nobody even said anything about it. We just kept building and just trying to move the space forward. So when it comes to upgrades, I'm sure there's going to be more. There's still going to be more hard work. There's still going to be ways to optimize to, as more teams come in, like barely anybody from South America is online. Like you said, he's heading up the African community and barely anybody's there. We're all like hobbyists at the moment, and we're good hobbyists. Everybody here is going to be an OG in 5 years. Like Pierre says he's not, he is, because in 5 years from now, he's going to be like, well, yeah, I've been here since, 2020 or whatever. And so this is just the start of a new technological age, and Arweave as a base layer for that technology age is just going to get better. And so that's kind of my viewpoint.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your inspiring thoughts. And Pierre, what are your thoughts?
Well, about Arweave 2.6?
Yep.
I would say that DMac covered it very good. And actually, he has a thread on Twitter, maybe you can find it, where he basically shows how theoretical transaction that's 10 times bigger then the Arweave's entire current dataset can be achieved only with the miners and the storage capability that's present today. And that storage capability will probably just rise because Arweave 2.6 introduced the capacity of miners to use basically consumer grade hard drives, not very speedy SSDs. DMac made some time ago a nice analogy saying that from now on there will be a race against Prius cars, like very efficient, and that's the main thing that Arweave 2.6 brings to the table: efficiency. Not only in making it greener. I believe that Arweave 2.6 is the most the greenest proof of work algorithm out there. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I believe that we are there right now. And yeah, actually making possible to use basically hard drives, it makes a lot easier for the network to come with the price for storage. Because right now you can assume that the price of a hard drive that's used is probably the one that's the most cheap and you can find easily on the market. This on Arweave 2.5, for example, it was quite a problem to somehow create a fair price that will make sense for the miners to stay on the network and stuff like that. Yeah, these are my thoughts, I think.
Yeah, thank you, Pierre. Jonathan, what do you think about 2.6 update, and how did it, how did it influence your guys working on RAO, or just how was that?
Yeah, well, I don't think, I echo everyone else. I don't think anyone's going to top DMac in the explanation. He during the Arweave in Denver, Andrew did an RCast episode with DMac where he got into some more details. So if anyone's interested, there's a recording of that floating around. You can get to it on our website, or maybe Anthony could tweet it here. I know he's listening. I would be interested in, we're asking, the question was, is it disruptive? I'm super excited for it. I think long term it will have a great impact, and I guess it did impact the network. Right now, prices for storage did go up, and I'm curious, and that impacts everyone. I haven't seen too much chatter about it from the ecosystem. I'm actually surprised, but it impacts usage of the network. I do expect it'll trend down, and not to put DMac on the spot, but I'm wondering if you could comment on that, DMac.
What's going to trend down? Sorry.
Right now, the cost of storage on the network is pretty high.
I can speak to pricing there. So what's going on? Actually, one of the more disruptive upgrades in 2.6 isn't really going to take effect, it's going to slowly roll out over the next year. And so one of the things that a lot of people don't know is that the pricing that the network charges for storage, after 2.5, it became dynamic. And it would use the difficulty setting of the network to adjust up and down very slowly. So every 50 blocks or something, it would look at the difficulty. If it was higher, meaning more miners had joined the network, it would adjust the price in that direction, up and down. And it did it in very small increments, like I think it was like 1%, plus or minus 1% change in price. And so what would happen is that the the network would adjust to the token price. However, when you have something that's based on difficulty and then you do an upgrade like 2.6, the difficulty on the network, which is it's a way to quantify the amount of miners participating, it becomes volatile and it bounces around. And so the sort of dynamic pricing had to be turned off for the first 75 days. And what happened was during the hard fork, the sort of AR to fiat price was set at $10 for the first 75 days. Instead of doing dynamic pricing, it's just like do the pricing, assuming that the R token's worth $10. Of course, promptly what happened is the token price went to like $6, for example. And so pricing was higher. Now, the flip side is if during that 75 days, the first 75 days, the token pumps, then Arweave is going to be really cheap. But the point is that during this upgrade, there needed to be a way to sort of have a stable price calculation that wasn't based on difficulty. Now, what's going to happen at the 75-day mark is that the dynamic pricing, because Arweave is now better able to, using the calculation I described before, where you can divide up the hash power of the network and estimate the number of replicas, Arweave's dynamic pricing mechanism is going to be much better able to detect the storage, basically the amount of storage that miners are providing to the network and the price that they're willing to provide it. And that's going to make a truly like decentralized, hands-off, operates itself dynamic pricing on Arweave. So what we're going to see at about like 2.5 month mark after 2.6 is we're going to see the dynamic pricing start to kick back in, and it's going to readjust based on the amount of storage that miners are actually providing to the network. And that sort of like fixed price point of just assume that our tokens are $10 is going to wind down.
I think DMac, you just nailed it down. And thank you for a description what's going on with with prices and storage. Sorry guys, we are a little bit running out of time, so I would ask questions a little bit quicker. So Daniel, would also love to hear your thoughts on 2.6 update and how did African community reacted to that?
Yeah, the Arweave 2.6 update was quite exciting. A lot of very exciting discussion around it already. One of the things I was fascinated by was the dynamic pricing DMac was talking about, having more precise estimate of price of storing data on Arweave. That's giving us more maximum incentivized drive speeds, basically. Being able to pinpoint the cost of storage was usually a sort of difficulty, but I think as more miners join the network, as DMac explained, we'll have more and more efficiency in terms of estimating storage prices on every blockchain. Yep.
Thank you, Pierre. Thank you, Daniel. I know. Dameon, you got to leave, right? Hello, Dameon. Yeah, probably he has already left. So Eva, could you please continue? We've got, I think, the last question, right?
Yeah. So here comes to the last question. That is, so guys, what do you think might be the next step for Arweave? What might be the like what you envision the future Arweave should look like? So maybe Pierre, you would like to come first?
Okay, I will be brief. I have at least two answers here. One that is more realistic and another one which is more wacky. Let's stick to the realistic one. I believe that in the not so distant future, if played right, the open data license that Forward Research is working at would solve a lot of issues that have plagued the internet basically since its beginnings. And you actually saw it in a wacky way happening during the NFT craze. when nobody knew what they got and stuff like that. So this open data license, which I think that is worked with in collaboration with Creative Commons, will bring a lot of clarity over who created a digital artifact, who owns it, who can access it, and under which circumstances, and all this stuff that will be enforceable at the gateway layer. Actually, I think that our friends from RIO can tell us way more about this, and I'm quite interested about this topic myself. Yeah. Hello.
Thank you so much, Pierre. DMac, so like from your technical perspective, what might be the next step, or what's still missing in infrastructure, or what might be the user case for mass adoption?
I'm most excited when I think about Arweave. The thing I'm most excited about is the permaweb. Arweave is a permanent archive of human information, of human knowledge. And I think that there's a huge amount of work that can be done, like the Alex project is doing with archiving pools and stuff like that. But at some point, you archive most of what exists on the internet. And while that's going on, I expect that the permaweb is going to be slowly growing and growing. And eventually, if everyone is using permaweb apps, there's no need to archive because the data is already permanent just through the use of the application itself. And so I think over time, the permaweb is going to continue to grow. So one of the things I'm excited about, there's a lot of things that I'm excited about, but to be brief, giving tokens in the permaweb, providing liquidity for them. Because as more and more apps and projects are being built on top of Arweave, there needs to be a way for them to make money, for them to like monetize in some way. And so like we're starting to see the very early stages of that. Like I saw on Permadao, you can now swap like Arweave tokens for other tokens that can be moved out to an exchange, and you can use it to buy lunch. And I think having these types of pathways to the permaweb, where you have projects and protocols built on top of Arweave that have a path to liquidity is going to be the next thing that unlocks a huge amount of growth in the permaweb.
Thank you so much, DMac. Daniel, how would you like to share your insight?
Yes, surely. Yeah, one of the things I think I would love to see more in permaweb is basically more of research institutes and maybe healthcare institutes putting their data into the taking advantage of the permanence that Arweave offers also. And I think also things that would be improved on is data search, basically. So as the Arweave network is growing, there will be need for more and more upgrades in terms of data search, in terms of content-based searches and all of that.
Eva, are you here? Probably, yeah. So we also have our guest, Jonathan. What are your thoughts on the future of Arweave, how it would develop? Could you please share?
Sure. Well, I introduced the RIO network in the beginning. That's top of mind for us. That we really want to see what releasing this to the world unlocks for the network. We see a lot of potential here. There's a new token coming with it. We have the name system, the ability for gateways to serve content themselves. I don't know if anyone's experienced like Arweave.net getting blocked by their ISP. That's a trend, not just with Arweave. It seems to be happening with like IPFS too. And just the more nodes on the network, the more resilient it is to being shut down, whether it's intentional, unintentional, just system failure, or whatever. So we encourage everyone to like subscribe to our newsletter, follow us, and get involved on that end. Just in general with Arweave, where everyone's seeing like this AI trend right now, and I'm obsessed with it. Like I've always been obsessed with AI and where it's going, and I think Arweave has a place in AI in regards to where do sources of information come from? Is this thing true? Is it a deep fake? Is it just AI generated propaganda? All these things. I think Arweave has a real opportunity here to ground itself as a content layer, a trusted content layer, or rather a verifiable content layer, where users can go back and see where this content was generated. Was it from a source you trust? I don't want anybody to tell me to trust it. I want to check for myself. So I think we're going to see some growth there from the network, especially on the social media side. There's a push to try to get Nostr engaged and whatever else there. I see a good future use case for Arweave. And I think Bundler's kind of doing it with this proof of provenance concept, and there's permafax and whatever other projects are going on. I encourage everyone to follow along and get involved and try it out.
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan, for sharing thoughts. I think AI is something where we like humanity. Maybe we are going to not only in blockchain, not only in Arweave. So that's for sure becoming like a mega trend in the whole industrial development. All right, so I think we have finished with the questions that we have prepared today. So would love to hear if anyone has a question to our dear guests. So please raise your hand and we will give you the opportunity to ask your question. So let's see what we have here. So I see there is one person. Okay. So yeah, just let me make him a speaker. Just a second. So yeah, I see. Yeah, Tokyo. Hello. Could you please ask your question? Hello.
Hello, I'm hearing you. Yeah. So
yeah, awesome. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
So I'm curious, what's your plan to attract Web2 users to the space? Because we're looking all bullish and everybody's just preparing yourself for the next move. So what's the big game plan?
Okay, thank you for the question. Whom would you love to ask? Whom would you love to ask this question?
I don't really have anyone specifically. Anybody could volunteer. That would be cool.
So any volunteer to answer the question of Tokyo?
I could take a quick shot at it.
Go for it.
Sure. Thanks, Dino. It's we're still early days. Onboarding Web 2, there's still user friction of just the whole concept of anything crypto, right? Wallets, private keys, and all that. And different teams, ourselves included, are kind of making strides towards bridging that gap. And we're actively engaging with different Web 2 companies and projects and trying to understand, where they're coming from, what it takes. And, I think there'll be an intersection of just like user education growing and then user friction from our space declining. So There's no silver bullet. Something like a hardware wallet would be great. We have the Keystone, Keystore, I always forget. But Ledger would be a great one, and just general user education and familiarity with the Web3 concept, I think would make great strides, and we're all working on that. So I'll pass it over to you, DMac. You had a thought.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of teams that are what I would consider, maybe this isn't entirely fair, but allow me a little grace, I suppose, in describing it this way, but like reaching back towards Web 2. That's obviously where the bulk of developers are. That's where the bulk of the, I guess, the economics are in terms of and activity. So it makes sense to reach in that direction. But ultimately, I think that the way that you onboard users, or the way for something like Arweave to be successful, it isn't to be a backup of the old internet. Like, you don't create the next version of the internet by backing up the old one. You have to lean into new use cases that are only possible on a new technology. And I think, for me, the things that I get excited about is new things that are only possible on a permanent censorship-resistant network where every user has their own cryptographic identity. I think there's use cases there that are going to emerge and going to find product market fit. And those things are going to onboard users who I guess we would normally consider right now to be Web 2, but they're going to come to Web 3 because there's something that they can only get on these decentralized protocols. And ultimately, so when I look forward for adoption, like, how's it going to happen? I don't know. But I have confidence in the ecosystem and the people building on Arweave that new solutions and projects are going to be built that are only possible on a decentralized network, and people are going to come for those projects, and that's how Web3 is going to grow.
All right, thank you. And guys, any thoughts to the question of Tokyo? Like maybe somebody also has something to say, because we are running out of time. So yeah, I think no. Okay, so yeah, thank you guys for coming to us today. Just briefly, 1-2 sentences, maybe summarize your thoughts, or just final words here. Would love to hear you. DMac, please. Hello, DMac?
Yeah, sorry, had an instance with a wasp. Put my phone down. Yeah, no, I just wanted to say thanks so much for having me today. I'm honored to be a part of this discussion. The Arweave community is fantastic, and so it was great to spend time with you guys talking about something that we're all passionate about. And thanks so much for organizing.
Yeah, thank you for coming to us. Pierre?
Yeah, also, thank you for having me. And I hope that we can do this kind of spaces more often and see how Arweave evolves. And basically, that's all for today, folks.
Yeah, Jonathan.
Short and sweet. Yeah, I encourage anybody listening who wants to get involved, just get involved. I gave my background. I'm, not a developer, not anything, and here I am. A bunch of our team is from a technical background. So just get involved, hop in a Discord, ask questions, follow our content, rdrive.io and ar.io. Read the cookbook, which is like just a community-led project of documentation. You can find that at cookbook.arweave.dev. And then just any other project in the ecosystem has a lot of really great resources and information to get onboarded. So just reach out with questions, ask questions, and meet people.
Yeah, thank you. And Daniel?
Yeah. Yes, of course. Thank you for having me today. It was amazing talking about Arweave and the amazing updates in terms of Arweave 2.6. So basically for me is just join communities because Arweave tries basically on communities and that's basically my own addition. Basically, just join communities and try to stay active.
All right. Thank you. So guys, yeah, thank you for coming to us today. Thank you for visiting. Thank you, our dear guests, for coming to us. Please follow on Twitter DMac. Please follow Pierre, Jonathan, Dameon, and all our dear guests. So really great thank you to Permadao and Permaweb News for helping us to organize this event. By the way, Eva, are you here? Are you with us? Yeah, seems there is some.
I was sorry, guys. There was like emergency core interrupting, so I lost my connection for a while.
Yeah, no worries.
So such a great pleasure to meet you guys again, and learning so much insight from all the Arweave OGs. Thank you
we
so
are
much,
also
guys,
excited
for making the efforts being here.
Yeah, thank you. So I think we are ready to stop it here. So let's keep developing Arweave. Let's keep it decentralized, and and build it together. Thank you everyone for coming.
Thank you. Good morning and good night.
Bye bye.